Hey, welcome back to Gecko Cove. My name is Bobby, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over why Lineage is important and what it can do for you potentially. So, why is Lineage important, right? I've had a ton of guests on my podcast, and almost every breeder talks about lineage. Lineage, again, is just knowing the parents, the grandparents, potentially the great grandparents of any of the geckos that you have that you're looking to breed. And that can be very important when trying to predict the type of babies that you're going to produce, especially when we're mixing two geckos that, if we have no idea what the lineage is, it's just chance, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when we're investing potentially over $1,000 on a high ticket animal, I'd want to know kind of where that gecko comes from. And so potentially, if your geckos have lineage and you buy from people who can provide those lineages, not only will you have a better predictor of potential baby, phenotype expression, but maybe that baby could fetch a larger price down the road. Not saying it will, I'm not guaranteeing that, but some people that it matters, and if it matters, people are willing to pay for it. So let's talk about where do you find out what kind of lineage geckos potentially have. So you can ask the breeder. So if you're interested in a certain gecko, you can go to that breeder, message them, ask them about the parents, see if they have a website, see if they'll send you any photos or information. I always ask anytime that I'm looking to acquire a gecko, what the parents are, what do they look like, where did you get those geckos from if you didn't produce them. Try to dig as far back as possible. Now, some breeders are willing to give you all that information very readily. Some breeders, if you're getting parent pics, you're kind of lucky. So it's up to you. I'm not saying that if you've seen amazing gecko, skip over it if it doesn't have lineage. I have some geckos that I'm working with right now that have absolutely zero lineage. It just didn't work out. It was some of my first pickups, and they're producing some of my best geckos. So again, not knocking on anybody who's using geckos that don't have any lineage. I'm just saying it can be very beneficial. So what I'd like to do next is to show you how I initially looked for understanding lineage, understanding how these geckos come from these other geckos, and look at generations in order to not only learn from other breeders, but just understand the progression of how certain geckos, when they're born, they mature in different ways, right? And so the long way of going about that is to breed your gecko, then watch it grow up and see what it turns into. And that's a great way of going about it. Don't get me wrong, but that takes potentially years. If you want to fast forward that a little bit, there are some great breeders out there that have documented that and put that on their websites. And I highly recommend you going on these websites I'm about to show you and just comb through and look to see what the progression is for some of your favorite geckos, to see, if you see a baby that looks similar to some of the other babies that were on these websites, you have a better educated guess to see what it's going to turn into. You mix that with lineage, and you've got a very good guess on seeing what a baby might potentially turn into. So let's, before I keep rambling, let's jump into me showing you a few websites. I've gotten permission from both of these breeders to show you around their website and give a few examples of how I used it and what my thought process was while looking at their websites to gain information about lineage, about baby progression, and hopefully this will help you make your next purchase when you're investing in a gargoyle baby. All right, so the first website that we're going to look at today is from Gargoyle Queen. She is probably one of the best examples of tracking lineage and also just displaying this on a website so that new breeders can really get sort of a better view of where her geckos came from, what to kind of look out for when looking at younger geckos, kind of seeing the progression of different phenotypes, including some of the super stripes, the six stripes, the super blotches, her ultra blotches. So let's just take a deep look into some of my favorite geckos on her website. So she's got a whole bunch of stuff. If you have not gone to some of her website pages, including understanding the different phenotypes, definitely, go check it out. Merry Christmas. You'll have a lot of fun. Well, today, let's just focus in on looking at her geckos. So under collection, Gargoyle Geckos, you can see here we've got some gorgeous geckos right off the bat. She's got tons of them. I mean, I can scroll all the way down. And actually, one that we'll focus on right now is this gecko, which I think is one of her most famous geckos. This is Vapona. It's a male. She's got them in groups right now. But if you click on any gecko, I mean any one of the geckos on her website, it'll bring it over to their own page, right? A little bit about the gecko. That's always nice. Right here, here's where I'm talking about the lineage, how you can kind of look back. So you can see the parents, who the parents were. We'll get to that in just a second. Shows you the hatch date. But one thing that I love about her website is she's got a bunch of photos. So this is a current photo, at least, when she posted it, it was current. Actually, back says the actual dates of the 2019. But as an adult, and then if you scroll back on this little time bar here, I go all the way to the very beginning. You can see this gecko back in 2016 when it was hatched. That's what it looked like. Now, this probably is an example of a few weeks old. I don't know. I'm guessing here. But what's nice is you can see a very young version of this gecko and see the progression. You can see how much coverage, a young, month-old, 2-month-old gecko. Actually, we can do the math real quick. So this baby was born on 2/29/16. This photo, at least said it was taken on 7/6/16. So 7 minus 2, this is about a 5-month-old gecko. And you can see the color already starting to spread a little bit. As we mature, you can kind of see the progression, right? These geckos don't get huge right away. But you can see the red starting to develop from the orange. Here, the red, look at the difference there. So orange, and that was on 10/28. And then just a few months later, you've got a completely red gecko. All right. Absolutely love it. And then you can go a little bit farther along. It still has some orange. I love the bicolor there. But you can see the saturation start to spread. You can also see some of these are fired up, some are fired down photos. But, this one doesn't have necessarily a red base, but you can see as geckos get older, the base color starts to come out. It takes a little bit of time for base color. It takes a lot more time for some lines. But absolutely gorgeous gecko. Now let's go back up here. What do the parents look like? Click on the dad. And this dad, here's the surprising thing. When I first clicked on geckos like this, not to knock this animal at all, it's a gorgeous animal, but it sort of has a muddy orange-brown base and not the craziest amount of color. And then you can see fired down what the dad looked like. She even goes back and shows what it looked like as a baby. Some really cool markings there. You can see this is a really awesome gecko, but nowhere near its offspring. So you don't necessarily, as you've heard from a lot of my guests on my podcast, you don't necessarily have to get the craziest looking gecko. You want to look at their genetics to see what they could produce. Okay, so if you get a gecko that comes from this line, your chances of producing a higher end blotch is better. This is all just kind of a gamble guessing game. And then you can even see back where this gecko came from, right? So we're not going to spend a huge amount of time, but let's look at that gecko's dad. It's a stripe. Look at that. So we've got a stripe in the lineage. That's kind of cool. What happens when you mix a stripe and a blotch? All right, I'll click off of that. Go back. Let's see what the mother looks like. And we got a blotch. Looks a lot like the dad. Actually, probably a little nicer in my opinion. Okay. And even with that, if she knows where the gecko comes from, which she knows where a lot of these geckos come from, this one's leaping leechies. All right. So you can really track where these geckos are all coming from. Look at mom. And mom, again, is a beautiful gecko, but nowhere near her son. And you can see here, got some pictures of younger mom. I think that's really cool. Now, not every single gecko is going to have baby pictures, but whatever she has, she's put up here so that we can start to get an idea of progression. We can get an idea of, you put these two geckos together, what does it produce potentially, right? And now, not every time that these two geckos mate are you going to make an amazing gecko like Vapona. But if I go and I click back here, let's go back up here, I know that this gecko, which is a female, is a full sibling to Vapona. And again, this is an amazing, you look at the genetic line, the potential, I would say Vapona is slightly nicer, but this is right there on par. Let's look to see what the baby pictures look like. So right out of the egg, oh, that's a cool photo. You can see, okay, when you hatch out your first gecko, if it's a blotch, does it have this kind of speckling, right? You've got yourself a really nice gecko. If it's a little bit more plain, we'll have to wait to see how it develops, right? Even here, it's not the craziest looking baby I've ever seen, but with good bloodlines, you can get a better idea. There's the color starting to develop. The base color here is starting to develop. It's really cool. It's starting to spread a little bit. This is a really cool bloodline. And so not every bloodline is going to do this. And not every gecko from this bloodline is going to do it, but it has the potential to do it. And that's what we're looking for, is potential. Same grandparents that she's got, listed up here, parents and grandparents. So we won't spend time on that, but I'll look at one more gecko just for fun. Okay. Let me pick a stripe here, something fun. What catches my eye? All right, so we got a red base here. Okay, let's just go through it. So what do we have here? So for this gecko, if I scroll back, right, you can see a really nice baby. Okay, some nice quad striping there. Not much on the laterals, but you can see the yellow there, which kind of indicates to me a red base when they're babies. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And then you can start to see some fired up photos. That red's really coming in nice and bright. You can see here, there's the red starting to kick in. Right? Really beautiful male. And so this is one of her males. And then if you go back to the parents, she's got not only the parents, but she's got, look at the lineage here. You can go back a few generations. It's so cool. Let's just look at the parents real fast. So dad is happy. It looks a lot like the baby, but the baby's a little nicer. Okay. And then mom, yeah, definitely a little nicer red base. So that's where the red base comes from. Again, it's not going to tell you everything, but it is going to give you a better predictor when you're spending your money. And especially if you don't have the money to buy the most gorgeous animal from a certain line. If you only have a certain budget, don't put yourself into debt trying to get the best lineage. You can get some amazing geckos that are maybe the third or fourth best production out of an amazing line. But this is how you kind of figure out what lines you want to invest in. All right, so that's Gargoyle Queen. Let's go to my next favorite breeder's website, and that would be Cosmic Exotics. Cosmic Exotics, when I interviewed Paige, go check out that podcast. I'll link it right here. But in that interview, she mentioned that she actually studied, just like I did, Gargoyle Queen's website and sort of used it as inspiration. So looking at this, you can see her gargoyles, see her males, right? And so if you want to look at certain males, like I love Brouhaha, and Flare is fantastic. So let's look at Flare, right? If you wanted to make a gorgeous six-stripe animal like this, you can start to go back, look at what the babies look like, right? What kind of potential, if you see a baby on a table like this, you know it has the potential to do something like this. Not all the time, but again, you have better odds. Let's see, this is mom, right? The quad striping is not nearly as nice, but still a beautiful animal. And I know Paige really pays attention to her lineage of the animals that she buys and acquires, and that is why she's able to produce some amazing, amazing offspring. All right, so let's head back. Okay, what does Dad look like? Again, really nice. So you took a female who didn't have the best quad striping, nice thick quad stripes on the back, a little bit better laterals there, paired it up, made an even better baby. Really cool. And even this, you can see that the breeder of this boy here, Vulcan, came from Gray Sky Exotics, right? Doesn't have a link to the parents, but if you go onto Gray Sky Exotics, website, hopefully you can find them, or if they don't have a website for that, maybe you can go and check out their Instagram. So there's always a way to kind of link back where these geckos are coming from, as much as the breeder has access to. Let's look at some holdbacks too, some things that she's produced. Oh man, Bellini, what an amazing gecko. I mean, look at the coverage on the head, the body. Okay, I want to produce something like this. So let's do some research. Okay, comes from two of her own geckos, Mango and Twizzler. Let's look at what this gecko looked like as a baby. I mean, it had nice little head stamps that grew, nice six stripe. You knew this one was going to be great, but I mean, the amount that it grew into it and spread, that's impressive. That's lineage. Okay, so let's look at Mango. Mango, ooh, very nice quad stripe. Very nice six stripe. Look at that. And even Mango, you can go see the baby pictures of Mango. Mango, wow. Almost looks better as a baby than its offspring. However, I don't know. They're both just gorgeous. Both quality. Okay, and you can see that she actually produced this gecko. So you can go back even farther. Pumpernickel and Brandy. Okay. Oh, we're back to same gecko here. And Pumpernickel. Now that's interesting. We got some blotch in the history. Really cool, but you can see where some of the color base comes from. All right. So we looked at Mango side. Let's look at Twizzler side. All right. Beautiful dark red on this gecko. And not a huge amount of photos, both the ones she has. And you can see she got this one from Redline Geckos. And you can go look those up as well. So, again, this is not a 1 + 1 = 2 equation, right? This is not an exact recipe. But you can start to see how geckos that you may overlook can create amazing things. And if the same geckos start to produce absolute fire babies, you know that has some amazing genetics. Even with Tiki's geckos, right? If David goes, it shows you Deadpool. Deadpool looks cool, but in today's standards, he's just an okay gecko. But he's got some quality offspring that he consistently produces, and that's why it's a line. All right, so let's show you my new website. So I just launched this website, www.geckocove.com. Go check it out. Nothing too fancy here. You can watch my YouTube videos. But when you go to my breeders this year, you've got my 2 males. And on each one, you can click and see where they came from. So Pralin comes from Bergie's Gargoyles, and he was hatched in 2021. And instead of linking the parents, what I did is I just put them straight down here. So, a lot of the places I got my geckos from that had lineage, a lot of them don't necessarily name They're geckos, not every single one. Sometimes it's a group here, or just these are the two geckos. Sometimes they get names, sometimes they don't. So sometimes I'll just put dad, mom, or father, mother. But you can see that he comes from some striped parents. Now, I did not get any information about their parents, so that's why I don't have that information there. If I go back, right, let's look at Eve, right? So Eve, she comes from Birds and Beasts Pet Shop, born in 2021. And then as the page loads here, it's really slow for some reason. I'm going to go backwards right away. You can see I've got baby pictures of any of the geckos that I got from a young age. That way, just like with the other two websites, you can see the progression. You can see her having her 6 stripes, but it blends in with her color, the red background coming in. So, and then you can see the progression, the bright red here. And then down here, you can see how her parents didn't have the strongest striping, but I definitely had that red base color, a really strong lineage of the red base color. And so dad did have a name. Her mom did not have a name, but any information I have, I'll share it just like all the other websites here. And then even with the holdbacks, I'm doing this. So Bimini, you've seen Bimini a lot on my page. If I click there, she comes from Firehouse Geckos. Show her baby photos and the progression there. She went from orange to kind of a bicolor. And then parents, we got Sirius and Ruby Riot. And actually, cool thing is, she's a half sibling to Exuma. So they both come from Firehouse Geckos LLC. Just a few months difference, different clutch, and they both have the same dad, but different mothers, right? So I think that was pretty cool, just to see the difference there. And again, that's what the difference at a young age looked like. Not the exact same gecko, even with similar parents. I'll show you one more. Even geckos like Mahe here comes from Renee King at King's Dragons. And just some progression photos. You can see the red base on him. He's one of my absolute favorites. And you go down, and this was the lineage that I got. So no name, group 2, and you can see mom and dad. Just absolute stunners. I'd love to have some more background on where they came from, but again, not every breeder is going to provide, that much lineage. If you can get the parents, be happy. If you can get the grandparents, be even more happy. But the farther back you get, the better predictor that animal is going to stay, in the blotch family, or that's going to produce actual stripes. One breeder that's got generations upon generations of keeping the exact same type of animal, base color, pattern, everything, is going to be Rack House. He keeps his geckos in groups. And so if you just really want to know exactly what you have and what you're going to produce, Rack House is a great place to start. But yeah, these are all amazing breeders, and you can't go wrong, especially with anybody who's paying attention to lineage. So hopefully this kind of shows you a little bit about what I did when I first started breeding and starting to acquire my breeders. I still haven't gotten geckos from everybody I want to, but people put out information like this, resources, and if it's free, use it, right? Take the time, invest in a little bit of research, and it will pay off. Has for me, and hopefully it will for you too. Again, I just want to emphasize that just because you get a gecko from a good line doesn't mean that every baby that it's going to produce is going to be absolutely A+ stellar. But you have a better chance of producing that top tier gecko that you're looking for if you know where those genetics come from. So it's just a little taste of what I did. Hopefully it helps you. If you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on Gecko Cove. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video and want to encourage me to make more Gargoyle Gecko content, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and maybe check out one of the videos right over there. I'll see you next time on Gecko Cove.